Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. Off-season talk, so we got a lot of topics here to talk to you guys about. We've got all three of the hosts today. I'm Cameron Johnston, joined by Jacob Boyers and Tyler Britton. Guys, let's go ahead and start with some of the most recent news from Sunday, obviously. Oklahoma City and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Cason Wallace win the NBA Finals. Jacob, they had one of the best seasons we've ever seen from any NBA player. Led the league in scoring, won NBA MVP and NBA Finals MVP. Give me some of your thoughts just on Shai in general, and obviously OKC winning the NBA title.
Yeah, well, real quick, I think you skipped the biggest story of the summer, and that might be Tyler Britton showing up for a podcast on time and
It's
being.
some would argue he wasn't on time for this one.
I mean, he's here at the start at least, and we're not halfway talking about Vince Marrow, and then his mug pops up there. So,
I like to make an entrance, guys. Come on.
I don't really have a whole lot more to say other than what you just said, Cam. I mean, arguably one of the best seasons in NBA history. MVP, Finals MVP, scoring leader. Just absolutely dominated the league, and well deserved MVP. This isn't one where people had fatigue of Jokic. Shai objectively had probably the better year, and I just think really just an unbelievably great season. In this one season, I think these are the kind of you can have one special season like this and then be just a really good player the rest of his career, and he's going in the Hall of Fame. So it's truly just a remarkable season.
Yeah, I mean, how many more seasons, not even necessarily of this caliber, do we have to see from Shai before he is the best Kentucky Wildcat of all time in the NBA? Because he was already, the
He's
first
getting there.
MVP, NBA MVP. Obviously, Louis Dampier won some back in the ABA, and Dan Issel also had a big run back then as well. But just when it comes to NBA success, you'd argue, I mean, at least in the Calipari era, it's him versus probably Anthony Davis. And AD, while he's been spectacular and obviously multi All-Stars, all NBA teams, never had that MVP, never the finals MVP, never just a dominant run like this. How many more years of domination like Shai had this year do you think we have to see before he is cemented himself as the best Kentucky basketball player of all time?
I don't think it's many because I'm pretty close to that point already. Dan Issel, obviously, I still probably think is the best. It's crazy. I thought AD would always kind of be the one from the Cal era. And, you could argue maybe injuries kind of played a pretty big factor into him never getting to that MVP level. But with the season Shai just put together, being the best player on a championship team, only being 26, and, he's got potentially like 8 more years of kind of being in his prime. I mean, if he has a handful of seasons close to this caliber, even without winning another MVP, I think there will be a real argument for him to be the best ever.
Yeah, completely agree. And Tyler, what if I was to tell you 2017, 2018, a guy who is no longer in the NBA, he's playing professional basketball somewhere, who knows, never sniffed an NBA court in Quad A Green, started over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for 10 to 15 games of his college career. What would you say about that head coach who made that decision?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that you wouldn't start, potential or a future MVP over anybody else, or on the. I'll rewind.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's pretty insane that you wouldn't have him starting on the team back in the day. But glad to see that he's doing well in the NBA now, and obviously holding the standard high for Kentucky out in the professional level.
Yeah, Jacob, what do you think about it? Quad A Green. I mean, what's the last you've heard from Quad A Green? Anything?
Well, I don't know how I could give any more insight than that beautiful answer Tyler just gave. So, no, I mean, Quad A, I mean, you talk about him not playing in the NBA. I mean, that was a guy that didn't even finish his career at Kentucky. Probably the best Quad A Green moment was when he came out wearing those glasses or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's truly remarkable. That is one. I know a lot of people like to point to that and blame it on Cal, and believe me, I'll have more to say about Cal when we talk about the other player that just won a championship. But like this is one that I just think it just shows the growth of Shai. I mean, coming in as a four-star, barely a McDonald's All-American, by far one of the least highly touted recruits in that class. And for him to kind of take his game from that level to when he first got on campus versus, when he really kind of established his dominance there in like mid-December against Louisville, and then to really just kind of go on this run. I mean, it wasn't just Calipari that didn't believe in him. The Clippers were ready to, ship him off for, aging Paul George with all kinds of injury concerns. So,
Worst trade in NBA
yeah,
history.
and so I just think Shai's growth is truly, remarkable.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, even think about the early process of Shai's recruiting cycle. I mean, really wasn't getting targeted at all. Had to earn that 4th star that he got later.
Yeah.
And obviously, coming from Canada, I mean, at that time there wasn't as many eyes. Obviously, a couple years previous, Andrew Wiggins had kind of opened eyes to more like Canadian basketball and stuff like that. But Shai, just the growth you mentioned. I mean, ended up winning the SEC tournament MVP as well. I mean, really, just that team was his by the end of the year, and to go from not seeing the floor as much, not starting, to SEC Finals MVP, to being the 11th pick of the draft, being involved in what was the worst trade in NBA history for the LA Clippers and the best trade in NBA history for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's wild to see, especially from a guy that, I was a big fan of at Kentucky. And even in my wildest dreams, I didn't see him becoming a guy who averaged 33 points a game on 52% shooting and 38% from three in the NBA, winning a finals and being the reason his team did. And like you mentioned, it's every single year of Shai's basketball career. He's just taking another step and another step and another step. And you mentioned he's 26 years old. I mean, at the minimum, he probably got at least 3-4 more years of what would be considered his prime. And with the way Shai plays, I mean, he doesn't really rely on peak athleticism. He relies on his craftiness, how long and lengthy he is. I see Shai having just more and more accolades as the years go on, and I think he will easily become the best Kentucky player to be in the NBA.
Yeah, and you make a good point about how he's gotten better every single year, even from last year to this year. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but like there's a world that there's even another level for Shai. So it's unreal. But to your point, one of the all-time favorites, for a lot of Kentucky fans during that era, especially on that team. I mean, that team we all thought like Kevin Knox was the guy, and it turned pretty clear, especially once we hit SEC play, that Shai was the best player on that team, and I think it's just kind of shown all the way throughout his career. To your point, just constantly getting better and kind of becoming the guy every step of the way.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, I can't applaud Shai anymore for what he's gone through, and how he's obviously the face of Oklahoma City and the Thunder organization. Obviously, don't want to leave out Cason Wallace, a big part of that team, winning the finals as well, and obviously was a big part of that team. I know you're going to have a lot of grief with how the old coach used him.
I do got to cut you off for a minute, Cam. I'm sorry, but we got breaking news. Amari Williams was just drafted by the Celtics. How about?
Let's go.
How about Amari?
I love Amari Williams. If you would have told me or just early in the season, a guy coming from Drexel was going to work his way into the second round of the draft. Great for Amari Williams. And we're going to touch a little bit more on the NBA draft towards the end of the podcast. But go ahead and rip on John Calipari while you got the chance and about his opportunities wasted using Cason Wallace at the University of Kentucky.
Yeah, I think we all saw, probably who should have been the, primary point guard and ball handler on that team. I mean, that team was a lot better when, Cason was being used in that role. And, no offense to him, Severe Wheeler wasn't. Severe Wheeler was, I don't think ever really a, Kentucky level point guard. I mean, obviously a very good point, he was good. I don't think he was ever the level that we needed. Any team that was going to make, a Final Four run, just undersized, good passer, but couldn't shoot, couldn't really, play the physicality and just the athleticism that you had with Cason Wallace and the playmaking ability. It was all, so much better. And I think not just myself. I think just about every Kentucky fan that entire season was screaming, we got to play Casey Wallace at point guard. We said it the year before with Ty Washington, and we didn't get it that year, and we didn't get it the Casey Wallace year either. But I'm extremely happy for him. He was always one of my favorite players. Really gritty defender. I think he's found his role in OKC, and he's playing it perfect. Is he going to be one of the best players on a NBA championship? Probably not, but he's kind of learned where his role will be in the NBA, and it's kind of to be one of the first guys off the bench, hit some open shots, make some plays, and play hard defensively, and he fits into that system absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned just how important he was, obviously, to our team at Kentucky. I mean, Severe Wheeler. I mean, the Spalding ball tester is what he was. Just dribbled the air out of the basketball. Obviously, Severe was a great talent at Georgia, is great for a program like University of Georgia. But like you mentioned, this is Kentucky. Look at the history of point guards we had during the Calipari era. Cason Wallace should have been in that realm. Instead, he was used more of a two guard, which he's not even being used at the NBA level. Normally, you see guys who are college point guards get transitioned to off ball once they go to the NBA. And in this instance, it's been changed. And if you can handle the ball in the NBA Finals in Game 7, I think you can handle the ball in what was a weaker SEC at that point. I mean, I'm no genius. Cal's forgot more about basketball than I know. But man, I mean, some things just seem a little easy that he just never went to.
Yeah, and like that whole situation was just weird, and I think it was pretty obvious that Cal was kind of over this place in the fan base, and bigger issues that we've spoke on at lengths in the past. So I won't dwell too much on it, but just Cason Wallace is a guy that you would think Cal would build in a factory. Athletic, can defend, get to the rim. Like that's how every point guard that Cal's wanted to play for him. That's how he played. And I think almost just to kind of get back at the fan base and say, I'm going to win my way, he's stuck with Severe. And, I think it was pretty unfortunate because it put put Severe in a bad spot, and he took a lot of criticism from fans. But it was the spot he was put in. And, again, you saw how much better that team was that year in the games. Either Severe didn't play or he played limited minutes because of injuries. I just think, again, Cason Wallace was literally built in a lab for Calipari, and the fact that he still kind of chose not to play him just to get back at the fans, I think just showed a bigger picture kind of issue at that time.
Yeah, and it really just kind of shows the downspell of what happened with Cal towards the end of his tenure, like you mentioned. I mean, this is all, we're seeing the writing on the wall almost coming with Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd. It almost seems like this is the second coming of that. And, I mean, it just sums it up perfectly. Cal just got so stuck in his ways, stuck in his roots. It was his way or the highway. There was no changing. There was no adapting, which I thought through his first, 5-6 years at the university did a very good job of changing, adapting to the bigger spotlight coming from Memphis. Obviously, this wasn't supposed to be a Cal show. Obviously, you just want to get back to Cason Wallace, the improvement he's shown since his days at University of Kentucky. Because I don't know if he would have been able to handle the ball as well as he is now, obviously. Just huge congratulations to both of those guys. Jacob, I don't know if you have anything else to wrap up on those two.
No, congrats to them. Like we've said multiple times, two of the fan favorites over kind of their year here. So really happy for them and excited just to kind of see what the rest of their career kind of plays out to look like.
Yeah, and just speaking on, excited to see how their careers go forward and how they pan out. I mean, we have guys that are, like you mentioned, breaking news on Amari Williams getting drafted. Let's just talk about the NBA draft. Obviously, so far, the draft is still alive, so still a chance for Jackson to get drafted. But so far, Kobe Bryant goes 41st overall to the Phoenix Suns, and Amari Williams goes 46th overall to the Boston Celtics. Just, Tyler, Jacob, touch on both of those guys. Let me know, kind of what you expect, where they came from in their untraditional roads to UK and then to the NBA.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I think, especially with Kobe, I think he's going to have a pretty solid NBA career. I don't expect, all-stars and MVPs or anything quite like that. But going to Phoenix, I think that's going to be a place, especially with the reports, that they're going to probably be cutting Bradley Beal here soon. I think it'll be kind of just a really good opportunity for him to be one of the first guards off the bench. And it's just crazy how much the NBA has changed. I mean, here we were, this time last year talking about how, he couldn't defend anybody, coming from Dayton of all places, playing at a smaller school. And he goes 1 year with the Cats and shows that he's one of the best shooters in the entire world. And, he's getting picked 41st in the NBA draft. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Kobe Bryant?
Yeah, I'm excited for both of them. I think, first of all, I want to give credit to Mark Pope here. He was able to put this team together last year, and Kobe Bryant, Amari Williams were able to go out there and do their thing. Obviously, helped that they could do a little bit more in the March Madness tournament compared to years past. So, credit to Mark Pope and building a program that is living on the tradition here. But yeah, I piggyback off of you. I think Kobe Bryant, again, may not be the all-star that is Anthony Davis or other players that have made it before him, but I do think that he brings some versatility to the court there in the NBA. I think he'll be a good. He definitely comes with some experience versus some other players who were doing the one and done stuff. So I'm excited to see what he can do out there on the court.
Yeah, and as far as Amari, I think I'm pretty intrigued to kind of see how Amari works. Right, like we just talked about it with Kobe, how important it is to be able to shoot at this level. Amari obviously doesn't have that part of his game, but he has just about everything else you see from your traditional NBA big men these days. He's got the passing ability. He can defend pretty well. He's not a guy I ever thought would get drafted. So to see him get picked in the second round, he's going to Boston. That's a spot where they're kind of starting to clean house. So there's a world where he's on that roster come October, and I think I'll be real interested just to kind of see how his playmaking and passing and the inside game can translate to the NBA.
Yeah, I just like seeing the road that these guys took. These weren't 5 stars coming out of high school, not even 4 stars. I mean, these are guys that come from Drexel, come from Dayton. Just the road less traveled. How often have we seen guys, during Cal's tenure or just even before then for a while, where they come in, buy their time at universities, work their way up, and then work their way into draft picks. Normally, under Calipari, you knew once they stepped on campus, hey, this guy's a first-round pick. And they usually didn't sway too much from that. I think it's great to see. I mean, we saw just Kobe Bryant, how much he transitioned from being just that spot-up shooter at the beginning of the year to being able to create his own shot at the end of the year. I mean, he was majority of our offense in March Madness, like Tom alluded to. And then Amari Williams, the playmaking from a big like that. Obviously, the jump shot, I don't know if that's ever going to materialize. I want to say, didn't shoot that too bad of a three-point percentage at the University of Kentucky. I know you remember some of those shots, especially against Alabama, nothing but net when we needed it the most. So just saying, it might be in there. Might be an ugly shot, but it might be in there. Obviously, Amari's got some things to work on, but I do think he brings a unique skill set that especially a team like the Celtics, who just traded away Kristaps Porzingis, probably need.
Yeah.
I got a question for the fellas here really quick. I'm curious because, as a new fan myself, obviously I know that there's a huge tradition with Kentucky basketball. What does it mean for the program to see players coming from the Mark Pope era now being drafted? I know there's been a long lineage of Kentucky players being drafted. What does that mean for the program currently, and what does that mean for the program moving forward?
Well, Tyler, I think that's a great question, honestly, because, really, think about it. Right now, Coach Cal just ended his streak of having all these first-round picks dating back to 2007. He had at least one in every single year. He leaves the University of Kentucky, and that streak has been snapped. And Mark Pope comes in his first year at the university. He's not expected to have a first-round pick, really only expected to have one guy drafted, and that was Jackson Robinson. And he turns that into 2 that have already been drafted, potentially 3, with what we're waiting for with Jackson Robinson. I think it's huge. It shows guys that, hey, listen, this isn't just a style of basketball we play that wins college games. No, this is going to get you recognized in the NBA, around NBA circles. We're going to develop you while you're here in Lexington and make you a better pro. It's not all about the talent that you had before you got here. but the hard work and dedication that you put. And I think it really shows that Kentucky and Mark Pope are starting to work a little bit harder. And I mean, Jacob, if I'd have told you even 6, 7 months ago, hey, Mark Pope has more guys drafted than Calipari does with all the 5 stars he had coming in, a dude at the Arrow who you knew was going to be a draft pick, Boogie Flan, Carter Knox. I mean, all these guys. What would you have said if I'd have told you that 6 months
Yeah, I
ago?
would have said absolutely not. I think we talked, even before the season last year, and I said I didn't think this team had a single NBA player on it. There was a world where I thought, Jackson Robinson could get there, but like I didn't think any of these other guys would ever be making, an NBA roster or getting picked. To Tyler's question, I agree completely, Cam. I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, I think it's going to help Pope get, better talent going forward. I mean, a guy, like Jasper Johnson's probably looking at, Kobe Bryant and saying, I'm more athletic. I can defend better. I got a nice jump shot. Like, there's no reason playing in that system I can't get drafted and, be a first round pick. And then so on and so forth. We talked, we spent a lot of time talking about the other recruits, but, a lot of 4 and 5 stars have been on campus the last few weeks. Like, those guys got to be looking at it kind of the exact same way. And I just think it's really going to kind of build it up. And there's going to be some big men that come through, and they're going to probably say, I'm more athletic and, a better shooter than maybe Amari. And, I think it's really going to help kind of get some of those more top of the line talents, even though, these guys are being second round picks. I just think it kind of speaks to the bigger picture.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Tyler, you've just seen the Mark Pope era. You saw a little bit of, Cal's fallout and what was the March Madness struggles. So really, you're seeing just this whole through a new lens that Jacob and I aren't seeing it through. From your perspective, seeing two guys, granted Kentucky is a blue blood, but getting two guys drafted in the second round who came from Dayton and from Drexel, smaller universities. What do you think that says about the program and it going forward?
For me as a former athlete, I think that makes me want to play harder for Coach Pope here. I think that gets the team to buy in a little bit more, trust the process. Much like what you guys said, I think that gives the opportunity for people on the outside saying, "Hey, like I can transfer next year. Where do I want to go?" I mean, we were basically from my perspective, Cam, when we went to Kentucky at the beginning of the year for Big Blue Madness, all the lights were shining and the entrance that Pope made and the team made, like it was all great, but I think there's a different kind of swagger that was entering the court that day, and I don't think we were realizing it. I think that people are recognizing it now. I think Pope is coming in; he actually means business. And for an outsider looking in, I think this is a great opportunity, especially if you're looking to build a career and you want to make it to the next level. I think of players on the team right now like Trent Noah, who I favor, so I have to throw him in every single time we talk about basketball. But I think that's a really good opportunity for him to build his career and maybe make him his way to the NBA, get some homegrowns in there, and potentially some transfers in there.
Yeah, and like you mentioned from the transfer portal, imagine being in the portal and seeing that a guy from Drexel in Dayton just got drafted after 1 year playing with Coach Pope. I mean, what does that say for guys that we can get next year and the year after that? I really just think it speaks volumes. Jacob,
Absolutely. Well, I was going to make a comment about, I don't want to ever hear anybody talk about how, we're not ball knowers. We got a former athlete, Tyler Britton, in here, and I just wanted to make sure that we highlighted that little.
The self-glazing he just had there for himself for a moment.
That he just threw in. But I think, even kind of in a different perspective, like it just kind of shows what the NBA is valuing, especially these teams that, feel like they're playoff contenders and, potentially, championship contenders. They're no longer taking the 18-year-old, and say, hey, we're going to send him to the G League for, 3 or 4 years and hope in a few years he's ready to kind of pan out. They're looking for unique skills that they think can help their team, right away. And I think that's why you're seeing a bunch of these, older athletes. Obviously, guys are staying longer, but you're also seeing the 22, 23-year-olds get picked. Like Phoenix has a role that they're gonna hope Kobe Bryant can fill. The Celtics potentially have a role that they're gonna hope that Amari can come in and fill, and there's an opportunity there for him. Not a lot of these picks aren't just we're going to send you down in the G League and hope you work out. So, I just think it's the way the NBA is kind of valuing these second round, late first round, second round picks going forward.
Yeah, and if you don't think as soon as it's available, I'm grabbing the first Amari Williams Boston Celtics jersey, you're crazy. He's just going to go on the wall right behind me, right with my Rajon Rondo Celtics jersey, and it's going to be a hall of Celtics Kentucky greats. I can't wait for it. I really do think Amari does have a chance. I mean, you're actually looking at a Celtics team that is in a little bit of like a mini rebuild. They're shipping out guys like Drew Holiday, sending out. I mean, you see stuff like this. I think Amari's going to have a shot. I do think he's going to have to work on his game. Mention the shooting, obviously. But I do think both these guys have real shots to contend and crack this roster. If not, I mean, would anybody have like complained if these guys were just full-time G Leaguers this time last year? I think that's kind of what we expected. Those guys to get G League invites and be guys who just had professional careers, but maybe not at the NBA level. Now they're getting their shot at least, and I think.
Yeah, I thought pretty much all the guys on the roster would be overseas. So I mean, to have for sure two of them, Jackson, even if he doesn't get picked, he'll get invited to a G League camp, and we'll probably hang around in the G League. It's nothing that I expected. Amari, I thought was for sure going to be like an overseas basketball player. So the fact that he has a chance, and to your point, there's a role there for him with the Celtics. That he could potentially even make that roster or be like a two-way player. I'm extremely happy for him.
I mean, kind of think about it in the way Oscar Tshiebwe doesn't necessarily fit into the NBA's mold, and he's still finding himself in the G League on two-way contracts, getting called up and back down. And I think you can easily see that for Amari Williams, a career where he's hanging around the NBA, the G League for quite a while. Happy to see for a guy who, man, like I told you, when we lost to Tennessee in March Madness, and you see Amari Williams tear up on the sidelines. As a grown adult, that showed me all I needed to see. I almost cried.
That Uber ride home we had together, that was brutal.
One of the most somber things I've ever been part of. But man, I'm so happy to see Amari. I wish we had video of Amari in the draft party that he was with. I'd love to see the reaction. Seems like the guy is just a class act and has worked his ass off.
He better enjoy some Weetabix tonight. If nothing else, even if those guys don't make a roster or whatever, and if nothing else, they give us the joy to be able to say that we had more draft picks than Cal this year after, the messy breakup. So they've kind of done their part for me at least.
Yeah, it's always good to show your ex that you're doing a little bit better than them. Obviously, 1 year out, both went to the same spot in the NCAA tournament. But Cal's calling card is obviously the draft picks, getting guys in the NBA. How about Mark Pope just coming out of nowhere and dunking on his head with more draft picks in the very first year with a bunch of guys that he had to get for a roster in 2 to 3 weeks?
Did Mark Pope just play Moneyball and succeed?
I would pay Mark Pope any amount of money right now if he tweeted out the greatest night in Kentucky basketball history right after the Amari pick.
He's way too nice for that to do that. But somebody might ask, Tom, you're good with IT stuff. Find a way to hack into Coach Pope's stuff.
Let me work on his password. I'm sure it's beat out Calipari 1, 2, 3.
All right, guys. Transitioning gears here. There's only been one addition to the TBT team. Kareem Cantor.
Second leading scorer last year. Cam.
I want to let you say your piece before I go ahead.
I mean, I don't really have a ton to say about it. I mean, second leading scorer on the team last year. Obviously he didn't play here. I don't know if that's going to be your gripe, but I know you have a gripe. I saw Nate Sestina confirmed on Twitter today that he's not playing in it because he's getting married this summer. Got to tell you, don't love the priorities, Nate. Don't love the priorities.
Get married at Memorial Coliseum. We'll throw you a party with about 15,000 people.
But I do think the TBT roster needs, a little more star power. I know we touched on that a lot last week, so I won't go too much into it. But I think if you have the chance to bring back your second leading scorer from a year ago, you go ahead and do it. So the floor is yours, Mr. Johnston.
Yeah, This is one of the most egregious things I've ever been a part of, and I just don't understand it. The kid never striked up with the Cats. Never has. Yes, his brother was a part of a team at the University of Kentucky. His brother also never played a minute at the University of Kentucky. Kareem has no business being on our alumni team. He wasn't a student at the university. In all seriousness, I know the player. I know he was our second leading scorer last year, and he was the reason we went as far as we did in that tournament. But I would genuinely rather, and this is going to be a hot take, and we're going to get to bold predictions later for the football team. I would genuinely, and I say this with all my heart, I would rather have Brad Calipari on this roster because at least he's striped up in the Kentucky
Wow.
blue. Kareem Cantor has no business being on this team. He has no affiliation with the University of Kentucky. He should not be striping up with the La Familia across his chest.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really know how he kind of got on the team, where he kind of fit in. Obviously, I assume it's something with Enos, but a lot of the guys playing don't have a connection with Enos either. So I don't know if it was a Cal thing last year or what, but I mean, I think once you put him on the roster last year, you got to kind of extend that invite, especially once he played so well. So I hear you. I'm not gonna get mad at you and say it's a terrible take. I just think once you put him on the roster last year, you might as well bring him back. I mean, at the end of the day, all that matters is that our team beats Louisville's team. So I don't care. I don't care if we go out and add LeBron at the end of the session.
I mean, honestly, the crazy thing is, at least LeBron was the Y at a game. He stepped on the Rupp Arena court before that. He has more connection to the University of Kentucky. He's a Nike athlete. We're a
what
Nike
what
school.
we got to do to get John Wall to suit up and go out there and remind these kids who the best point guard of the Cal era was.
Let's get Boogie to strap up. Man.
Yeah,
He just got suspended from his league. I mean,
dude, could you imagine Boogie and Montrezl Harrell getting into it, and Boogie just they will never allow that man back in TBT, but it would be worth it. It would.
I would pay to see that. And you mentioned the lack of star power. I think that we're at 9 guys as of now. And the first round of the TBT tournament starts in less than a month. It's July 18th is when the Cats will be suiting up for the first time. Obviously, we have no insights on who's even available for this. But if you could think, obviously, we just mentioned John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, but guys that you think we could get, is there anybody that's screaming to you that you'd like to go out and see?
Yeah, I mean, those are 2 huge ones. I don't know what Brandon Knight's doing these days. Is he still playing professionally somewhere? If he's not, I mean, he's an obvious one. You try to think back to the early Cal years, and
Terrence Jones.
Who? Yeah,
Terrence Jones.
G. Jones.
Get some of those.
Hell, bring back James Young if he ain't playing anywhere. I mean, there's
Miller. James Young was on the team last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he didn't he? So, yeah, I think you need to add a star piece. I mean, just imagine if they were to announce, Brandon Knight's going to come back and play. I would go crazy. I think it would be awesome. But yeah, I would like to see them just kind of add one star player of some sort. Even, go out and bring back MKG. I know he does a lot of stuff around Kentucky still. He still loves it here. Just from the fan perspective, it would be awesome.
Yeah, it really would. And you just need that star power. Right now, I mean, Willie, he was a part of the team last year. But, I mean, he's probably the biggest, household name across Big Blue Nation that's a part of this. Obviously, you got Deron Lamb, who won the title as well.
It's just
Could you imagine the excitement behind Big Blue Nation to see John Wall and Boogie Cousins strap it up one more time? I mean, could you imagine? This is all about selling tickets, all about, just doing stuff like that, selling merchandise, all of that. Imagine what John Wall or Boogie Cousins would do for the Kentucky Wildcats, because you got to remember, that was our childhood. That was 10, 11 years old when they strapped it up. How cool that would be to see those guys play one last time.
It would be crazy. I would find a way to get a ticket and go. I mean, they always talked about they wanted to play together in the NBA. It never worked out. Come back, have one last ride. I'm all for it. I mean, we got to remember, those guys are older and everything, but I was pretty disappointed to see Nate Sestina wasn't going to play, because even though he's not the star power, he I mean, he was objectively the best player on that team last year, which was kind of surprising to think about when you're sitting there talking about guys like Willie and, everybody else we had last year. But, yeah, I mean, if you give me John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, I would find a way to either go to or watch every single one of those games.
Yeah, I mean, I plan on going down there, hopefully, getting some content for the Cats Talk podcast and share it with you guys. All right, last segment here. I challenge both of you, and I'm going to have my own, for one bold prediction for the Kentucky Wildcats football season. It can be good. It can be bad. I'm telling you guys, though, we are heading into the weekend, and it's going to be a good weekend. I'd rather you not give me bad news and end me on a sour note. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. Give me one bold prediction for the Kentucky Wildcats 2025 football season.
All right, so hear me out, all right? So I've been giving this a lot of thought here. I think that Kentucky is going to find a way this year. They're going to get 7 wins this season. They're going to find a way with the quarterback. They're going to shore that up. They're going to have more of a balanced attack with Zach Calzada all the way throughout the season here. He has some SEC experience, so he's going to go out there. He's going to be a little more efficient than Brock Vandegrift. They're going to shore up that offensive line a little bit. He's going to get the ball out a little bit quicker. I have confidence in the offensive passing game picking up the pace a little bit. And then Kentucky's defense, I think this is a bounce back year for them this year. They played okay last year, but they had a lot of injury. We were talking about our defensive line not showing up in the biggest moments, getting lazy there. I'm not gonna mention any names live on here because we've already talked enough about him. But you know who I'm talking about. But this year is our year. We're gonna have a better defensive line. We're gonna have more consistency on the defense. We're not going to give up small or simple plays for touchdowns or anything like that. We're just going to play good, consistent football across. We're going to be a top 10 defense in the nation. So I see us stealing a couple wins from teams like Georgia and Texas and South Carolina this year to get us 7 wins this year.
Hey, you said bold, and that's maybe the boldest thing I've ever heard on this podcast.
Whoa! I was gonna ask you, where are these 7 wins coming from? I mean, let's just go through the schedule. I would assume Toledo.
I got Toledo, Eastern Michigan. I got South Carolina. I think we dropped the ball against Tennessee. I think we beat the Gators. I think we beat Vandy. I think we beat either Texas or Georgia, and then we wrapped the year up with Louisville at the very. That would be my bold prediction there.
So do you have us losing the Tennessee Tech game because you forgot to mention?
And we might get 8 wins. I said 7+.
Boy, all right, that might be too bold. All right, Jacob, go ahead and. I know your negativity's coming. I know it's coming.
Moore's about to say he predicts 2 wins.
Yeah, my bold prediction is that this team does better than people think, and they win 4 games. Mine is I'm going to give you not a positive one. I think everybody listening knows kind of how I feel about this football season, unfortunately. Mine will be by October 18th when Texas rolls around. Zach Calzada is no longer the starting QB. I think we'll turn it over to Cutter. Hopefully we have something to look forward to in the years to come, and it'll be Cutter's team from that point on out. I think, I'm not ready to pick us to lose to Toledo yet, but I think, that could be, kind of an ugly win that we've seen a lot. I think they lose to Ole Miss, they lose to South Carolina, they'll beat Eastern Michigan, and I think after that Georgia game, when you're 2-3 and the program's absolutely deflated and dead, I think Mark Stoops will realize he needs to make a change, and he'll make the change at QB.
All right, now I have a question for you. Now, is this Zach Calzada driven, or is this just because you think that we're going to want to see Cutter for the future? Is it more the fact that we just know this is a one-year deal with Zach Calzada, or are you looking towards the future?
I think it's a combination of both. I don't expect Zach Calzada to come out and be the, Zach Calzada that beat Alabama that one time 8 years ago when he was, 19 years old. I mean, I'm 28 years old. I got gray hairs. My body hurts every day. I can't. I mean, I am fat and out of shape, but still.
I wasn't going to say it, but.
No, I think it's going to be a combination. Could Zach Calzada be a good quarterback with the 2021 roster? Sure. But I think kind of with the roster build, I I think the only way this team is good and competitive is if you have like an elite level quarterback, and I don't think either guy on the roster is that. So just think. Let's just think about what the vibe around here is going to be if you start 2-3, and let's say you're not competitive against Ole Miss, and you're not very competitive at South Carolina, and Georgia comes in here and rolls you. Even if you're 2-3 and you're saying, hey, maybe we can save the season still and get it to a bowl win, like there's just not going to be good momentum around here, and I think it's just going to get to the point where things are so toxic and so bad that Stoops is going to feel like he's got to make some type of switch. And what's the easiest switch to make in football? It's to drive hype. It's to switch the quarterback.
Or to switch the head coach. But there's a lot of money involved on that one. That one's not going to happen. We've kind of been
that's a conversation we'll have in the off season. But I think during the year, the only thing's going to be to, make that switch. And also, I liked what I saw from Cutter last year. So, I think there's potential for Cutter to, take another step. So I don't actually mind seeing Cutter halfway through the year.
Yeah, I like what I saw from Cutter, everything except for the Louisville game. The Louisville game, he was absolutely atrocious. But then again, so was the entire team, and we were buying hot dogs at halftime. Yep. So, new culture. We got a motivated Mark Stoops. It's going to lead us to hopefully, like Tyler said, 7+ wins. My bold take here for the season is this offensive line that led Brock Vandegrift into retirement last year is going to be a top 5 unit in the SEC. The transfers that they got this year,
you still have the same coach.
You do still have the same coach, but the lack of talent that they had on that team last year, you had guys that were career backups and guys who hadn't played in the SEC. You got guys like Josh Braun, who are all SEC guys coming over to fix that guard spot. Will Schlager and Shai Pete, both are all conference from New Mexico State and Bowling Green. Granted, it is a step up in competition. It's going to take a couple weeks to get those guys gelling. But like you mentioned, the season, you get right into it. You go from Toledo straight into Ole Miss. Ole Miss lost a lot of talent on that defensive front. Lost Walter Nolan. They lost a lot of guys. Obviously, us Bengals fans kind of wanted Walter Nolan. Now we're dealing with this Shamar Stewart nonsense. I don't even know what's going on there. I'm getting myself worked up about a topic that's not even involved in this podcast. But I do think this unit will be top 5 because I do think we're going to lean on the run a lot. I don't think we're going to drop back and pass as much. I think this is going to be true, like that first year you saw from Will Levis, where we were true running the ball most of the time, but we were able to uncork balls deep, take shots over the middle. And I think that's what's going to lead this unit into being a top 5 unit in the SEC. Because I do really have faith in Will Schlager. And Jalen Farmer, I thought Jalen Farmer was our best offensive lineman last year. He's returning. You got Jagger Burton. I do think this unit can be really good. You mentioned we do still have the same coach. I'm hoping guys who have already been taught the correct methods, guys who have been all conference before. You have 3 of those guys. You just need Jalen Farmer to stay at the same level he was at last year, and they need somebody to step up that center position, whether it's the WKU transfer, Evan Wibberly, or it is Jagger Burton. Either one. Whoever wants to take that spot, it's up for grabs. I think this unit could be really good. And what is one of the driving facts into what I think is going to be a better offense than we had last year, but unfortunately still not going to lead to all that much success in the win column.
Well, I'll tell you what's not a very bold prediction, and that's to say that the O-line will be better than last year because I don't think it will be.
Hey, I said top 5.
I agree. Yeah, top 5 is definitely a bold prediction, but yeah, I agree. I agree that they'll be better. It seems like you have more established talent at the positions than you had a year ago. But shit, if they all just don't jump in the hot dog line, at the end of the year, or make Calzada and Cutter Boley retire, I think we're on the right track.
Yeah, I don't even think that's talked about enough. That this guy literally took thousands of dollars and said, "No, I'm fine." Because of how
he
bad
had another year of eligibility, and before coming here, talked about how much he loved playing football, and he just wants to play wherever he can play. And then that guy gets beaten so bad that he's just like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm done."
It's quite insane. Last year, a roller coaster emotions. So many different. I was thinking about the other day. It popped up in my memories. That Ole Miss
so
game,
fun.
I had the time of my life during that game and after that game. I don't know if I've ever been happier for a Kentucky football win. And then just to end the season like we did, obviously we've talked it till we've been blue in the face.
As happy as I was for that Ole Miss game, I think I was equally as frustrated 2 weeks before for the South Carolina game. I think that was probably the most frustrated UK football game I've had.
Yeah. And guess what? Buckle in, buddy, because we're going to have a lot more. But guess what? The Cats Talk podcast is going to have you covered during the Kentucky football season. The recruiting trail. Kentucky's been on quite a roll, getting commitments from Texas. Still waiting on the Moeller quarterback. Hopefully this time next week we have better news to give you guys. Follow the Cats Talk podcast on Instagram, on TikTok. Jacob's doing a great job on the Twitter or the X machine, whatever you want to call it nowadays. Next week, guys, Thursday, July 3rd, we are drafting our all-time Kentucky basketball lineups. Tune in, because I already know this. Tom's team is going to be the worst. And then followed up just by Jacob's. I mean, I would probably put 120 points on Jake's team in about 25 minutes, and I'd put in Brad Calipari and Saul Smith and guys like that.
I think one thing you're forgetting about with Tyler's team, though, is that he's going to draft himself as a former athlete, and we got to watch out for Tyler.
I'll put Amari Williams in there, Jackson Robinson, Kobe Brea. My starting lineup.
All right. All right, guys. Hopefully there's still a couple more picks left in the NBA draft. Hopefully Jackson Robinson does hear his name called. But that is all for us. We'll check back in with you guys next week. Cats Talk Pod. Go Big Blue.
Blue.